Longhorns, Miss Mackey here. Today I'm going to be talking with you about study skills. Your advisory teacher has given you a study skills checklist, which you have probably already filled out, but today we're going to go through and look at what your answers actually mean. As a class, you guys probably already discussed some basic study skills, which are easy to recite when your teacher calls on you. We all know that we're supposed to go to a quiet area and be organized and manage our time well, but actually putting those things into practice is a lot harder than it sounds. Some of the smartest kids I know don't know how to study. I've looked at them before and said, okay, I need you to go home and I need you to study hard. And all I can imagine that they're doing is, okay, time to study. Selfie. Hashtag studying, hashtag working hard, hashtag I love school. Or maybe, well, Miss Mackey asked me to highlight all the important words and I highlighted every single word, so I guess that should cover it. Possibly even. I know Miss Mackey said that I'm supposed to cram all this stuff inside my head, but how am I ever gonna pull that? Did it work? And unfortunately, guys, those techniques are just not gonna cut it. Surprisingly, even the brightest crayons in the box sometimes miss the mark when it comes to studying. But before we can teach you how to study, we have to figure out what your areas of strength and your areas of weakness are. And that is where the study checklist comes in. Okay, at this time, your teacher is going to pass back your study skills checklist. Now that everyone has their checklist on their desk, we're going to go through together and make sure that we've selected the best answer. Remember that you're not trying to impress anybody, and these are personal questions that have to do with your study skills. So be sure to answer honestly. If you've already chosen yes or no, but you think you'd like to change your answer, that's fine too. We're going to go through one by one and make sure that we've all selected either yes or no, and then I'm going to show you how to notate them at the bottom to keep score. I spend too much time studying for what the grades I get. I usually spend hours cramming the night before a test. If I spend as much time on my outside of school activities as I want to, I don't have enough time left to study. Or if I study enough, I don't have time for outside activities. I usually try to study with the radio or TV on. I can't sit and study for long periods of time without becoming tired or distracted. I go to class, but I usually doodle, daydream, or fall asleep. My class notes are sometimes difficult to understand later. I often cannot find my work even though I know that I did it. I usually seem to put the wrong material into my class notes. I don't review my class notes regularly to prepare for tests or quizzes. When I get to the end of a chapter, I can't remember what I've just read. I don't know how to pick out what is important in the book or worksheet I'm reading. I can't keep up with my reading assignments, and then I have to cram the night before a test. When it comes time to study for a test, I can't find the papers and materials I need to study. I lose a lot of points on essay tests, even when I know the material well. I study enough for my test, but when I get there, my mind goes blank. I often study in a disorganized way, under the deadline of the next test. I often find myself getting lost in the details of reading and have trouble identifying the main ideas. I rarely change my reading speed to match the difficulty of the selection. I often wish that I could read faster. When my teachers assign papers, I feel so overwhelmed that I can't even get started. I usually write my papers the night before they're due. I can't seem to organize my thoughts into a paper that makes sense. I frequently lose important school papers. So hopefully at this time you've confirmed all your answer choices and you've selected the ones that you think definitely apply to you. Now I'm going to show you how to use this section at the bottom to figure out which areas of study skills habits you need to work on. All you have to do is look at the numbers beside each section. If you said yes to that number, you're going to give it a check. Because I said yes to numbers 1, 2, and 3, I'm going to put 3 checks. When it comes to number 4, 5, and 6, I said no to number 4, yes to number 5, and no to number 6. So I only have 1 check mark. Go through with your answers, placing check marks on all the numbers that you gave a yes answer to. Take note that for reading, you have questions 10, 11, and 12, and also 16, 17, and 18. Now that I've gone through and placed my checks, I'm going to put a star next to every category that has at least 2 checks. If it just has 1 check, no star. 2 checks or more, I'm going to go ahead and put a star. So now I know that for my answers, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 areas that I'm going to need to work on to improve my study habits. At this time, take a minute and talk with your classmates about which areas you have in common. Are there other students in class that also need to work on their reading skills or their writing skills? Go ahead and discuss that for a few minutes together. So now that we've figured out which types of study skills you need to improve upon, we're ready to teach you everything you could possibly want to know about studying, right? Well, not quite. Before we can teach you about how to study, we have to figure out how you learn. And the fact of the matter is that not every kid learns in the same way. Next week, we're going to talk about the difference between tactile, auditory, and visual learners. Maybe you already have some idea that you learn better by hearing or by doing, but we're going to go through another checklist and figure out exactly which area is the most effective for you. If you are an auditory learner and your teacher gives you something on paper that you're supposed to go read and look at and understand, maybe you're going to need to take that extra step. Maybe you can go home, record a voice memo, and hear yourself say it back in your ear to help you retain the information. Having different study strengths and different learning styles is part of what makes us all unique. So don't worry about what the other people in your class have come up with on their surveys and their questionnaires. All that really matters right now is you and what you need in order to be the most successful Longhorn you can be. At this time, your advisory teacher is going to be available to answer any questions that you might have about your checklist or about anything that we've discussed so far. Until next time, Longhorns, this is Ms. Mackey signing off.